Joining me now to discuss all the top stories is Thomas Farines from Football Beyond Borders. Hello, Thomas. I think we have to start with the Raheem Sterling story, don't we? Because this is, I mean, effectively, it's a shame.
Good evening, Andy. Well, to be honest, this is not the first time that a football player, a professional football player, has got himself in this kind of situation. Just to name a case that maybe people will be familiar with. Chris Smalling, a couple of years ago, he dressed himself as a Taliban with the bombs and all over the place. Well, if it was a Joe Nobody, would we care about that?
I mean, I take your point, but they are slightly different things. You know, one of them is a professional athlete dressing up foolishly. The other one is a professional athlete taking a substance that is not necessarily treating his body in the best possible way. And it's not really, you can call it party behaviour, but actually this is your athletic body that you're messing with. And why would you do that?
Well, we have to always think of the background. What is the athlete? Is the athlete just an athlete, or is the athlete a young man? And Raheem, he's just 19. He's still a young man. Well, he needs to settle and see if he wants to go to be one of the best. Maybe next year he will be on Cantonet's top list. But for that, he will need to settle down and talk and grow up and mature. But now I see him as still a childish player. So still not 100% an athlete.
Bit of a conspiracy theory for you. We heard a few weeks ago when Sterling was talking about why he hasn't signed his contract with Liverpool yet. He was fluttering his eyelids at Arsenal. He was making it clear to them that he'd be interested in a move. That's how it's been speculated anyway. Now, we also know that Arsene Wenger is really tight on the behaviour of his players. Now, could it be, and this is conspiracy theory stuff, but could it be that Liverpool aren't that fussed by the fact that this video has come out now, because it's probably going to distance Arsene now? He's probably going to be saying, oh, well, I'm not going to touch him now. I wouldn't have a player doing that. Or is that just nonsense?
That's interesting in the sense that, yes, it could be the fact that, yes, there's a lot of things happening around this player. Yes, it could be a way of saying, look, this is a player that cannot be managed and stuff like that. But you have to remember that Arsene Wenger dealt with Tony Adams and all these guys that, well, were in the club before he arrived, but had issues as well. But
since then, his incoming players, he has done extremely strenuous background checks about their personality types. You know, he hasn't signed someone else with a recognised problem or with behavioural issues, as he might cite.
Well, would you turn a player that has the capability like him of changing the course of a game?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? It's the whole Hatem Ben Arfa theory, isn't it? Does he disrupt the squad for being a maverick on the field, for what he can do for 5 minutes of magic for, you know, in a game? Would he disrupt the whole squad? And maybe that would be something that would create an issue for people considering buying Raheem Sterling now.
Yes, and I also think that for Raheem to come back to London, his hometown, would not be a good move for his career. That can even make him go wilder.
Well, we've seen it before with players like Nile Ranger, for example, who had all this promise and then just got carried away with the excitement of earning loads of money.
Or Ben Arfa.
Right, precisely. OK, so let's move on to the Champions League. You watched both the games.
Yep.
Probably not the most gripping football you've ever watched.
No, it was very hard actually to decide which was the game to choose between the two. They looked very promising, well, prior to the start of the game, to be honest. And as I was watching, I was trying to watch both the games so I could see and pick one. It didn't happen. It was poor football.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Atletico versus Real Madrid, because there was an incident that we both saw during the match which has irritated me somewhat, which was the elbow by, I've completely forgotten who's done it now. Sergio Ramos, that's the one. Sergio Ramos' elbow on Mandzukic, which opened a big cut on his eye. Ramos had no ramifications from that at all. There was no card, there was no ticking off by the referee, and yet Mandzukic was absolutely heaving blood. You know, he can't have done it to himself. How the ref didn't recognise, well, yes, you've clearly had contact, and then do something about it is astonishing.
Well, to be honest, Mandzukic he's known to be a player that boils fast, that gets irritated in the pitch. So for me, what the defense of Real Madrid were doing is they were trying to get him booked.
But he was being physically punched and elbowed left, right and centre.
Exactly. sometimes Real Madrid, we have seen in the past when they played Barcelona, they get a bit nasty during those games, and they seem to get away with it, unfortunately, because he clearly had a contact, and not one, because we saw the elbow, there was a punch in the belly,
yeah.
and there was another elbow at the end.
The cut was reopened once he came back onto the field by another player, again giving him the elbow once more out of view of the referee. It's quite dirty from Real Madrid. Usually I love watching them play, but I was quite surprised at just how dirty they seemed to be tonight. Yes,
they seem to be very dirty, and you have to remember, lately, since even prior to Mourinho, they have been known to have some dirty players. Sergio Ramos, he's not an angel. Neither is Pepe, who wasn't playing today.
Right.
But they're not angels, and they go for it.
Let's have a quick word about Juventus versus Monaco. It was sealed by a penalty, but that had quite a few chances in that match, didn't it?
Yeah, well, first, the penalty was clearly out of the box. The referee didn't see it. It's all right.
So you don't think it should have been awarded?
It's not that I don't think it should be awarded. Referees can make mistakes. But it was also a game that, yes, Monaco had a couple of changes, but I don't see them passing. Juventus is such a strong squad.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Juventus do hold their nerve, because they haven't been in the last four in the Champions League since 2003. Can you believe that?
I actually can. It's unbelievable. Some clubs have this kind of problem. And if you think about over the past few years, some clubs that have reached the top four that are not even top of their leagues.
It's crazy, isn't it? Thomas, thank you. You've been terrific as always. I'll see you again in the second half. It's time to rejoin our special guest, Thomas Farines. And Thomas, I think we need to start off by talking about that Lewis Hamilton celebration, because it has actually caused quite a ripple of reaction. I mean, he sprayed champagne directly into the hostess's face, and people have said this was a bit naughty.
It is. It is. And to be honest, we had that problem as well with cyclism last year, when there was a bit of a bad moment when Peter Sagan went on and grabbed the hostess a bit too much after winning a race. And look, this is the kind of stuff that cannot happen. Yes, I understand if you want to joke with your pals, with the other racers, like he did with Rosberg or with Vettel, but I don't understand if you have to do that for someone that is just there working, doing their job. This is disrupting.
Very wise words, Thomas. Thank you very much for your time.